Hey y'all, Ethan here, repping the tie. It's time to get down to business. I'm gonna be talking about how geology is destiny. Recently, I've been posting photos tagging them geology is destiny. And it's all about how geologic formations and events shape us and our lives and everything around us. Some of you may ask, how the heck does a rock influence my life? Well, I'll tell you why. In order to explain this, I gotta start way back. Here we are, 130 million years ago. And what's going on? A lot. We got three plates, all doing their own thing. You got the Pacific plate being all grand and big. Then you got the North American plate being all stubborn. And then you got this little tiny Pharaon plate coming in, getting sandwiched in between them. When I mention plate tectonics, you can also think about all your friends in a pool. Each one of you has your own inner tube. And there's just way too many of you in this pool. And you're all just bumping up against each other, sliding up against each other. And some of you may get lost and go under one another. So, 130 million years ago, the shoreline was actually at the foot of the Sierras. And the land that we're standing on right now was underwater, or maybe 1,000 miles away from where we actually are. And so when I mentioned some of you may get lost in the inner tube fiesta, that's what's going on right now. The Pacific plate is pushing the Pharaon plate under the North American plate in this term called subduction. And what was happening to the Pharaon plate was it was actually melting under when it hit the mantle. And it was creating these granitic plutons, kind of like these balloons or like a lava lamp of these big bubbles of molten rock. And before they reach the surface, they cooled down. And so if you've ever seen pictures of the Sierras, that's why you get all these perfect little bubbles of granite. What was also happening at this time, as the Pharaon plate was subducting, is I was getting scraped off clean, the top, kind of like the icing of a cake. And that icing of the cake composed of dead stuff, shellfish, bones, dinosaur poop, you name it. Anything that would collect at the bottom of the ocean, it was getting scraped off. So all that stuff getting scraped off and built up, that was actually forming something called an accretionary wedge. And with time, that was building up and creating an underwater mountain range. So that accretionary wedge is building up underwater. Eventually, it breaches the surface, and you get these offshore islands happening, which are the beginning of the coastal ranges that we see today. All of a sudden, I'm looking out, and there's this huge lake in between me and the Sierras. Guess what that is? Central Valley. So bam, more uplift. Central Valley gets drained. But it's still this bowl in between two mountain ranges, and it's just getting all that good stuff, all that erosion happening, all the minerals, and it would just piling up down in that bowl, that huge bowl. It makes all those plants grow. And the thing is, it's still going on. All right, 55 million years ago, that's where we are now. Let's go south. Let's get our tan on. What's going down here plays a key role on what we stand on right now. Now, prior to all this, far away, tropical lands, there's more oceans, okay? And those oceans, have that seafloor stuff, all that dead detritus, calcium deposits, dinosaur poop, you name it, all right? Now, back on that subject of plates, there's big plates such as the Pacific plate and the North American plate. And then there's microplates. And those things are like, getting bullied around by these big ones. They're getting pushed around, they're getting subducted, disappearing, or uplifted and forgotten about. So there was some major partying going on down south. It was like spring break. And about 29 million years ago, the party stopped, all right? That Pharaon plate was still subducting until now, all right? And so all of a sudden it was gone. Now you get this huge Pacific plate coming in face to face with the North American plate, and they're all just like, who's gonna budge? Turns out no one was gonna budge. They were just gonna be friends and slide against each other, thus creating the famous San Andreas Fault. So you get that San Andreas fault, that strike slip fault. What it does here is that it breaks off that Southern Sierra section. And what that did is that San Andreas fault, the Pacific plate, actually is going northwest, as the North American plate's kind of just staying a little put. And so we are sliding up northwest, and that section that broke off, turns out it's sitting right here. So geology is destiny. That's what this whole topic is about. You get these unique compositions of aspect and mineral deposits and locations, all forming these microclimates, and these microclimates shape organisms to live within them. And these mountains here, they're actually really special because there's a lot of, unique organisms out here that only live here, such as the San Lucia fir. Would that even exist without the Farallon plate going under or the San Andreas being created? I don't know. So how does it relate to us? How does it shape our lives? I could use the example of the Salinas Valley. All the minerals and the water that comes from these mountains feed that Salinas Valley, and that Salinas Valley is a productive landscape to where we can grow food for the majority of the United States and even parts of the world. Aspects of farming bring in jobs, revenue, cultures from all around the world, and we all find ourselves living here. For some reason, the landscape has brought us here. Take a look at why you find yourself here, and why do you want to stay here or leave? Doesn't matter. Geology is destiny.